I'm in Rock Squad up, Magi archers in the building, please believe. Oh shit. If you ain't Sinetta, no time for that interview, dog. I put my shit out for niggas, I don't send it to blogs. Plan kill off the Buddha, not being discreet. One puff, this big pops and projectiles. Between the sheets. Sun run, cold game, bring your cleats. The best flow blow, Eskimo, penguin feet. Don't need no blunt to burn. You run the turf with 10 niggas on the block. That's a punt return. Ayo, Dolomite prototype soldier with the solar light. Saber and he hold it like he hold a mic. Golden ice spenders, sipping on that overpriced poltergeist spirits. Ripping at the open mic, spoke the nice lyrics like Mama moved mean overnight. Golden motorbike holding on some Tron shit. That nice neon kit is on it. The king's libation with exotic liqueur. The queen's vibration like a Sada Shakur. A lot of decor, imported foreign threads, they ain't got at the store. Nubian Kush, black top pottery jaws, 39% THC, the quality pure. Old rappers try to spit, ain't hot as before. It's like I'm 5 flights above, bust the shots at the floor. Cats switch up their style when they ain't got it no more. Cause they gotta keep their product in stores to feed their kids. See what that weed did? The yes man agreeing on everything we said. I smell the mic like it's the love of my life. Don't get sliced and beat with the butt of the knife. Brother polite, I say I'm animalistic, cause I still be in the hood with my hand on my pistol. The Hebrews think I'm cannibalistic, E5 divination, channel the mystic, audio visionary. Let's play poetical Pictionary, picture me burning down your missionary. Yeah, then I send you religion. That red dot on your head, that's Hindu tradition. Invisible, independent, intrinsic shit. I'll bring it all to an end with indivisible games. Charles Xavier, getting your brain. Mental anguish, a manifesting physical pain. Wizard remains to dance in the chemical rain. Breathe slow, then I'm up out of this physical plane. Got military machinery that exercise, weaponized greenery. Shine at a jeopardize the scenery, son. Bruh, the beam 10 times your distance. Inclines convention. Stop rising with no trend line resistance. The parabolic breakout. I'm F-16 with the aeronautic fake out. God killer, the God killer, the God killer, the God killer. It's the God killer, the God killer. That's who it is. The God killer, the God killer. It's the God killer, the God killer, the God killer, the God killer. It's the God killer, the God killer. Yo, what up, what up? Peace, 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 what's up? Back on it, early morning. It ain't even early morning. We just back on it. This the home of real homework. So this the home of homework. All right? Hope everybody chilling. We're going to have a good show. Talk about a few things. Keep learning. Let me play this track. Get ready. Like the video. Leave a comment. Let's let people know we streaming. Let's go. Here we go.
Black people, I love you, and I love you enough to tell you, you ain't ready to revolt shit. You don't feed yourself. You don't hunt your own animals and slaughter them. You don't prepare your own meat. You don't own your own land. You don't have a seed growing in your window. So you think about revolutionaryism, and you think about fighting and dying in the street, you ain't shit.
Killer Mike said black people ain't ready to revolt. It's a disparaging marriage and he ready to elope. Maritime coastline, deep V hull boat. Crack a nose turned up, machete to your throat. The divine snatched the arm back, she fine, she in Zinga. Moroccan mercenary got a line on Moringa. Ask Chief X to swing it. Go fund me to rock a new car or build a school like I'm Dr. Umar. Nah, go fund some more guns, banana clips and cannabis and bury it. The jackal, Anubis. I'm pool, keep them heaters and I'm in tie in an abyss. He ain't rapping due to libations, he just channeling this.
Hands down, you ain't ready to oppose nothing. You are as a part of this system as any white person gentrified.
I'm on life. Hovercraft propellers over swamp water. We make the thoughtful think they should have thought harder. Be aware this. Don't blink, there's only one blunt between the careful and careless. It's hard to face it when you need a shrink or a therapist. Mental disorder ordered them to label you a terrorist. I breathe elements and I found the secret. We could all walk on water if it's ground beneath it. I carry my weapon and keep my trade, and still be Hotep and ask to rig not shade. 6 in the morning, I greet my seed, then do everything I think I need.
I have to say this because I know our spirit and our emotions get stirred. I'm not against nobody on the panel. I'm with everybody on the panel. I'm not diametrically opposed to anybody. I agree with everything my brother said about revolutionaryism. So let me ask you guys a few questions. We're in the South. We're in the heart of the South right now. Who fishes? Who knows how to fish? Hands down. Who knows how to hunt? Let's hands. Hands down. Hands down. Hands down. Hands down.
Black people, are you ready to revolt? Black people, are you ready to revolt?
That's right. Go on and roll in. Say something when you roll in. Say what's up in the chat. It's good.
Black people, are you ready to revolt? Black people, are you ready to revolt?
What's up? What's up? Just chilling. You gotta watch what information you parrot. All right? Because sometimes you might be depending on what somebody else say, and you be lightweight playing yourself. So let's watch what we parrot. Before I get into that Cairo Symposium stuff, we could get into that when people, when the people around. We could just chill, get our chill up for a minute, and look over a few other things I was tripping off of. Oh, let's see. Shout out to the chat. What up with Sadiq? I see you. What's up, iJuice? Proof, Evidence, King Socha in the building. Omar, what's up? Man himself. Black to Egypt. Anointed Stop. Peace. Peace, peace, peace. I just was doing a little morning studies. Just doing my thing. Right. I don't even want to be on the screen, so hold on. Just doing my studies after we talked last night about the Scorpion King and the Lion King. If we the people who think those are just movies, I mean, they ain't based on them kings, but I think the inspiration was drawn from the knowledge of history that somebody had. But aside from that, those were actual real figures left with the symbols of kingship in ancient Egyptian records. So that's something to trip off. We looked over a lot of those attestations last night, and it was kind of cool to see. The Western thing I was doing, it was an audio book. Forgot the character name. Oh, you talking about, I still got that. I've had that for years. I just play it every once in a while, hoping to get some momentum. And once the pages, that's just more additional content. I'll spend more time making additional episodes of Tally Ho. That is Fremore Jones. And his horse is Tally Ho. His horse is Tally. Right? Which, thanks for asking about that little creative piece. What up with Sat M Hotel? What's up with More One? So let's look back at the screen. What I was looking at was, I was just doing a survey. And some of this stuff already be over. It just be extra over revealing.
Word up, I'll play some Fremore Jones later in the show. When I need an intermission, we're gonna listen to Fremore Jones. Free. I was trying to be so funny with my effects, I did all my echoes myself in that voiceover. I was like, Fremore Jones, Jones, Fremore Jones, Jones. Then I get away from the mic. This was funny, but anyway, let me get in. Let me settle in. Hold up. What I was doing was actually looking over some ancient Egyptian words, but how they pop up, the word frequency, comparing two terms to each other, and seeing how they popped up in word frequency. I'm surprised it's not saved in here. Let's see if this is the last search I did. So it'll let us know where these terms pop up, how frequently they pop up together. So I'm going to try to change this lemma and hopefully find the one that I was doing. The lemmas I looked for was, well, those are the numbers that represent the glyphs. I looked up Kemet, which I claim it don't mean land of blacks. It don't mean black land. It just means black. And then the category of the term is how we determine what they call him black. So I did this search a long time ago, and see the lemma right here for Kemet is 1644.30. Now if I go right here and put Ta, which means land, I can get the lemma for that. And see the times that people said land and this term Kemet together. So here we got land. First of all, they got Egypt in parentheses here too. So I guess land is just Egypt. It's the word Ta. Land with geopolitical reference. So then we take this 400 or this 400,096 and copy that back on the last line. And we're going to see the frequency of Ta at 1644.30, if I remember that correctly. Excuse me. So I should have just did it like this. So Ta Kemet. Then it's gonna open up a series of questions. Because if they tell us Kemet mean the black land right here, if we find Ta with Kemet, 1644.30. What am I tripping on? If we find Ta with Kemet, then how do we rectify that? Are we saying that the person said the land of the black land? And when this search comes up, we'll see we do find plenty of these. Okay? And this is what I be talking about. They don't have an answer for this too. But there's too many things for you to answer. It's not because of my lack of knowledge, but that could be the case too. First of all, let's trip off in this transliteration. We have right here, Ta Mary. All right? We got Ta Mary. Hold up. We about to do the real teacher. If I click this Ta Mary, it's going to say beloved land. Egypt. Now this is justified Let's blow this up so we can see. Because Mar-E is a beloved one. Mar is like love. Mar is, Marie is like a beloved one. What's up, love one? That's Marie. Ta on top of this Marie right here. Now we can see this grammar needs to be consistent. Else we don't got nothing figured out. If the grammar rules ain't consistent, we metal netter ain't deciphered. Feel me? So some consistency has to be there. If we see this ta on top of Marie, we say ta Marie, which has land in front of beloved. And when we translate it, we say beloved land. Damn, man. Run that back real quick. Hold up.
Black people, I love you, and I love you enough to tell you, you ain't ready to revolt shit. You don't feed yourself, you don't hunt your own animals and slaughter them, you don't prepare your own meat, you don't own your own land, you don't have a seed going in your window. So you think about revolutionaryism, and you think about fighting and dying in the street, you ain't shit.
Killer Mike said black people ain't ready to revolt. It's a disparaging marriage and he ready to elope. Maritime coastline, deep V hull boat. Crack a nose turned up, machete to your throat. The divine snatched the arm back, she finds Shinzinga, Moroccan mercenary.
All right, cool. Thank you for waiting. Beloved land. We can all see how that works. Now, apparently enough, we got a word land here that literally says land, but we also have the 049 determinative, which appears to contradict something I presume that land don't really go with the 049 determinative. But what we'll notice is it doesn't contradict what I presume is because they actually wrote land here. So let's remember this. They say ta, Mary, and then they put a crossroads city situation symbol behind it. But ta Mary, it was a nome at certain times, but it was also just like a region, and some could consider it Egypt. Peace to Pan-African James, Magic Mountain. I see you, hold up. Yep. So then we snap back into this text. And let's see how this was being used in this text. It says, Pa mini in ta Mary. The establishment, what's many? Herdsman, okay. The herdsman in ta Mary. Ramisu Amen, this is somebody else. Ramesi Amen, Hor, Kapresh F. Let's go. So his Kapresh F is like his war helmet. They calling that a king name. But that, I mean, I guess that's part of his name still. I mean, but the cartouche started and never stopped. You see this? The cartouche, is all of this in the cartouche? Damn, all of this is in the cartouche? So look, the cartouche got 3 lines in it. So this is definitely a different period because they put all of these statements inside of the cartouche. Well, let's look at this right here. This says ta. So we see ta Mary, beloved land. Ta Wawat. All right. That'll be the land of Wawat. It's making sense. It's being consistent. And actually, if you want to make it like beloved land, this would be Wawat land, right? Ta, Wawat. Notice they didn't put any conjunction in the middle of here. So it's sort of like Ta Mary, Ta Wawat. I don't know what the gem, Najm. How do you say Najm? I guess it's Dim Najm, whatever yet. Did Najm yet. I couldn't even say that. Well, it would go Demedj. How you say that? Demedj. That's what I probably should have said. It means to reassemble. But I'm not about to go through this text. I'm like that. We simply about to trip off the ties and how they relate them to places of land. Because here we have, as we see, ta, land, ni, in, or of. If this is a ni, it's only an in here. But it could be representing a ni y, which means belonging to. Now, if this means black, this makes no sense. We could go back. The land belonging to. Now, you can't say Egypt, because that's going to mean you cheating. Because they wasn't thinking about no Egypt. They wrote what they was writing. Egypt comes from Hoop Kapata. If they wanted to write Hoop Kapata, they would have wrote that. They wrote Kemet. And people tell us without no grammatical license that Kemet means the black land. But I told you it ain't no land, none of these, besides this 049 glyph, which we don't cite when we read it. It just lets us know the category of the word. Yes, a city situation has to go on top of land. But just land don't mandate a city situation. Land could be agricultural land. Land could be any type of land. Barren land, wasteland. But this is obviously has black in it because it is fruitful land, fertile land, I should say. So if we see here, the Egypt is in parentheses, so they admitting that that's not part of it, but they kind of say, just look at it like that. But what I'm arguing is that there's nothing here that literally says land, because if we switch the determinative, we're still going to have Kemet. I could put a cow here, and it don't say cow either. It just say Kemet. So if you see what I mean, the only meaning we can extract from these is fair to the translation of black land. We can extract black from this. We can extract femininity or something topophilic from this. I mean, something that has to do with the topography from this. And we can extract, again, city situations or a category dealing with land. But it don't say black land. And the contradiction comes when we see them use the word for land right before they say it. So that would mean this person said the land of the black land. That don't make no sense. But they don't want it to show what it really said. And it ain't plural, so you wouldn't take it in for as far as to say the land of the blacks and then make that a people group here. That's the most error that could happen because it's easy to do. But we have to understand this when we learn Coptic. See, Coptic retains a lot of stuff that be snitching. So look at this. This is what I'm pointing out. Ta, this person wanted to say land belonging to black. Essentially the land of black, but not the land of blacks. But we still dealing with the black land in the regard of a reference to the fertility, but you have to see how this really, really works. Because he talking about that. Because he said ta in before it. You see? See, if we can say ta in Kemet, it contradicts the fact that we're saying black land just by saying Kemet. This isn't an anomaly, and people could bring some understanding to this. But we're going to see when we go into the translation how they try to reconcile it. The land of Egypt. See? That if they change it to Egypt, it'll make it make sense. And grammatically, if we can substantiate the fact that even if they wasn't thinking of the sounds that make the word Egypt, if they was thinking about the geographic location that we know today to be represented as Egypt, then these translators can substantiate their translations. That is just merely saying the land of Egypt. But y'all got to remember, this is still a contradiction because Kemet is supposed to say the land of Egypt. Remember? Black land. That means Egypt. So you saying the land of Egypt. The land of blacks. I mean, the land of the black land. I'm going to let it say it the way they want it. That makes sense? So you wouldn't just say the black land? You're going to say the land of the black land? Anyway, let's click through this. Ta is land. Okay? Now it even make it more corny when they say it's Egypt. Because they trying to describe which ta they talking about right here. So how could ta always be Egypt? Ta in belonging to. Now that make it crazy. Because when you use a ni, we starting to deal with nisbas. So now this means it could just belong to a toponym, but I swear to God, all the opponents of this view always limited to that aspect. And they do it all the time. They're going to say, yeah, related to the land of Egypt, belonging to Egypt. But stop limiting the semantic range, because all I have to ask you is, because that mean they also belong to a tribe? And they would have to be forced to say yes if they understand the grammar rules about nisbas. Could it also mean that they belong to an ancestral lineage? Yes, it could mean that. So when you see the nisba, it ain't always dealing with the toponym. All right. So it's a land belong. So how could land belong to other land? Anyway, it says land belonging to the black land. Our land belonging to Egypt is how they say that. I would say that I'm not using this to say anything. This says land belonging to black. So it's kind of saying the black land. Now, if you want me to argue how Kemet is not black, how Kemet is not black, I do. That's just a great mistake to say. I got a PhD linguist who on my back like, nah, they tripping. They don't understand linguistics. And he's a PhD in linguistics. Ta in Kemet. Kemet here is supposed to mean black land. So if we translate this, it's supposed to say the land of the black land. Don't make sense. It's double stated. If we go down to another, and then we should read the attestations to see, is it being forced in there or are they justified? Like the white crown, and he has done the same with the Atef crown. The land of Egypt rejoices at the time because you sit on the throne. Okay, that's not bad. The land of Kemet rejoices too. Ta and Kemet rejoices, that make perfect sense. And that is the land of the black, which is just talking about whatever, but it ain't talking about the people to me right there. We're going to get to how it could be. Now, let's look at Pa. This is another attestation. Pa, the, let's look at Pa. The, this is when a definite article was employed. The land belonging to the black land. Y'all think that's all the way? If there is no land stated, if there's a possibility that land is stated here, it is just the land related to the black. But I'm going to show y'all how that turns out. Can't make sense out of it just dealing with the ancient Egyptian, but when we look at the languages that derive from ancient Egyptian, we start to understand it. All right. And so, honestly, Kemet was just called like the black, but whatever. I'm not the only one. I can open up an article from Sandro Capocicci that says that, and he puts one in parentheses, or he says it's the black one. But again, if you own your social racial constructs, you're going to be missing this teaching completely. You have to understand that's an anachronism right now. I don't know how it would be best said, but let's just look over these attestations. The land of Egypt with the Pharaoh. So now they saying Ta Ni Kemet. They literally saying the land of Kemet. They're not just using Kemet to say that it say the land of Kemet, you know, the black land. It's kind of like a contradiction, but people can explain this. I mean, you know, it's just something I'm looking at. Now look, I was the son of a charioteer from the land of Egypt. Still Ta Ni Kemet. So we see that this expression ain't an anomaly. A lot of the time when they wanted to actually say the land of, they would say Ta in front of it. Either we're considering that they said land twice, or land is evident in the word Ta, and land is not evident in the word Kemet. Land is presumed by the category. And it's right, that's true. But again, the difference between land and the city situation is you could be in a barren land or any type of land, a garden, you know. And so let's just continue. Now, as for the day on which the princes came from the land of Egypt, literally the day when the princes came to go out, the crocodile was at its fate. Now, sometimes the funny part be, if we go into some of these texts, just like I detailed from Sinuhe, you be thinking, because the scholars told you that they're talking about the land of Egypt, then you'll probably go into the text and see that the person was in Egypt already. Then they say they're going to go to Kemet. I can't assume that for this text, but I did cite the one I often cite. Sinuhe. This is a dog. Just reading. I'm not going to get caught up trying to find something in the text. Let's keep just doing the analysis until it's time to break it down. And if you're watching the video, click like, do what you can to help the teaching get out there. Now, Tani Kemet, who came to attack the land of Egypt. Here we have the wickedness against the land of Egypt. Tani Kemet, and then you can see the time periods kind of like they don't put Old Kingdom when I look at it like this, but they don't put that, but you can still read like Ramses II, Ramses II. So during the time period of Ramses II, it's safe to say that to express the land of, one would actually say Tani before Kemet, or one has said in plenty attestations. So that the land is being stated in certain attestations. It says Uri Pa Tani Kemet, also the land of Egypt and the land of Hatti. Okay, now look at this. Pa Tani Ket. Now, this is something we can't put it together with because it says Pa Tani Kemet. This doesn't, just because it says Pa Tani Ket, does not disrule what's happening over here, because there's not no presumed statement of land. See, they put it in, you see how they put it in parentheses? This is just Keta. But they always make it say land for some reason, which is fine. I ain't with that, but we have to understand that. If they really wanted to be correct, they would say the foreign land of, because we got this right here at the end. But they are correct. We're just analyzing things. So this would be Pa Tani Ket, the land of Hatti. See, that makes sense. Pa are the land of Keta, but I'm not translating Keta to what that means. So I would just say Pa Tani Kemet, the land of Kemet. It is stated here. So saying Kemet means the black land is kind of problematic if we want to pay attention to detail. So here goes one called the extradition of refugees to Egypt. It says, when a person or two people who are not known or no ranking people flee from the land of Egypt, that is the Ta in Kemet. It says they come to the Grand Duke of Chatti, which is Keta, to plead for another king Hattusili into subordinates. However, they wanted us to understand that it was about getting up out of there like a fugitive. So still, we can see that they say the land a lot of the times before they say Kemet. So it's evidence against the presumption that land is stated when you say Kemet. We see, why is this important? Because this is exploited. Because if you could say that land is stated every time they say Kemet, then you could morph black land into another term. You can't just morph black into Egypt. But you can morph black land into Egypt by way of this explanation of the Nile soot. It still lines up in that category. I don't think I'm reinventing the wheel here, but I'm just giving us a perspective to look at it that'll provide more clarity. And the fact that we have evidence that Ta-Ni Kemet is how you say the land belonging to Kemet. And Kemet meaning black here. It never say, I have not found Ta-Ni Kemet to you. Because that would be kind of crazy then. If it said Ta-Ni Kemet to you, when they're saying that Kemet is a nisbah to make Kemet to you is a nisbah to relate it to people of Egypt. So the land of the Kemet to you would then be the same thing, but never mind. a little different. I just don't want to mount that challenge right now. All right. So everybody see these tiny Kemets, but we about to look at some other things, right? We got tiny Kemet. I want to look at something else. I want to look at Ra. First, we're going to look at Ray. I guess I could probably get it like this. Maybe not. We're going to look at Rodney Kemet. Right? Well, we want the mouth. So that's not going to give me the mouth. They just want me to put an R. Remember, we just looked at Tani Kemet, right? Land of Egypt is what they say. And then if they say in the ancient Egyptian, it meant land of the black land. That don't make no sense. But let's show even more how this starts to be revealing. When we find the one that means mouth, we're going to go through these R's. One of them just going to say mouth. Now here's the comparative one, R, that I have been talking about. The R of comparison. But I'm glad I found that in here. So now I could teach that from the TLA. Now, instead of just going off on a tangent, I'm going to go like this. Because there's so many R's in the dictionary. And then, I'm sorry I didn't click translation. There's so many R's in the dictionary that I just got to get to it. This probably will wind up being quicker. Or maybe not. Yeah, here we go. R mouth, okay? So we're going to take this lemma and do that comparison. And then we're going to go back, take this off, pop in that. And the word frequency we got is the maximum distance is 10 words apart, left or right. So it's going through the text corpus. Now, apparently enough, it didn't find this R for mouth 10 words apart from Kemet, which is interestingly, so I got to use another rendition. It might be one that says utterance, speech. Here we go. 9258. 92580. Is that the same one? Nah. Let's try speech or speech. See if it pops up close to Kemet. All right, that still ain't popping up close to Kemet. And so I know the phrase that I'm trying to show you, but I want the text corpus to find it. So give me a second. Actually, they about to have the whole phrase in here. Watch. Well, they should. Well, I'm trying to show you some terminology. Well, I could go on the Coptic and show you maybe. Ren, M-K-E-M-I. First, I gotta go there. Ren and Kemi, I'm gonna say Coptic. Oh, you see it says Tiaspi, Ren and Kemi? Had y'all tripped off that? So I just was tripping on Ren is, well, Ren and Kemi is language because it's the mouth of black. But watch how Coptic gonna tell you that. Coptic ain't gonna lie and say the mouth of Egypt. They gonna say the mouth of blacks. And they ain't gonna put an S on there. But let's see if I can pull this out. So this says Tiaspi, Ren, and Kemi at the top of the screen, right? And it's basically the language of the Egyptians. But it's really the language of, I want you to see the source say it, because you're going to think I made that up. So let me find here. Let me see. They had a course reading where you can finally, maybe it's learning I need to click, right? Well, I mean, damn, man. I would like you to see that, but I can find that in plenty of sources because it's not hidden anywhere. This is French. So let's see. Maybe I could go to, I'll turn that off. Maybe I could go to show you guys. All right, you can go right here. So what I'm trying to show us is in the Coptic language, certain things from ancient Egyptians get retained, right? And if we come down here and look at what they tell us the Coptic language is called, they say Baharic Coptic. You see T, now this says T-Met, not T-Ospi, but it's giving us the same thing. T-Met, I mean a little different. T-Met, because what we're dealing with is Rem in Kemi, right? And I swear that they will tell you, yeah, that means the language of Egypt. But when you're in a Coptic learning class, they'll tell you that that means, oh, look, see, this is gonna wiki us through. This is T.I.S.P. Ren and Kimmy. Let me see. Let's see if we could get it. All right. So Rem in Kimmy. Well, yeah, all of these I'm using wiki, so they're not qualifying it the way I need it qualified. But what we find out is they had two ways to say two things. A man of Egypt was Rome in Kemi, and the language of Egypt was Ren. It comes from Ra or Ren in Kemi, right? And so when I just only saying this because I learned it in the Coptic course, that when they break it down and we could find Coptic literature that will show us, they just say the land of black. All right? Maybe we should even use Crumb's Coptic Dictionary. So again, I'm only showing this to show, not to say that was just saying. They wasn't on the race hype yet, like you might be thinking. But what they were showing is that you don't divorce. I wonder if I could maybe I could just copy this Ren and Kimmy over to there. Hold up. Maybe if I take these Coptic symbols, right, and copy it over, it might work. These right here. Then I'm gonna put them into the online Coptic dictionary and see if we can get better source material on this. Dang. So I'm just gonna take this part off and put Rem and Kimmy. It's not seeing my font for some reason. Dialect, it still ain't seeing it. So let me see, language. When it go too far, I just want to table it for a later time because I got a lot of data for us to look over. That's the Coptic word, excuse me. I don't know why I be feeling like I'm time pressured. I could take as long as I want. But sometimes I'll get off track and be like, man, now you're about to be searching for this for 3 hours. All right, here we go. But this is not giving us what we're looking for. In the Egyptian language, attributive. Whatever. What we learn is, in the Coptic church teaches us that the Kimmy just retains the blackness, but they expel it out in when they go over to English and just say, nah, it ain't got nothing to do with that. It's only about Egypt. All right, I wish I had a better way to show that, but I'm going to get off of that right now. So my question is just grammatically, some people who know more than me can say, no, that's not a big deal. But I want to know, why would one who could just say black land put land in front of that statement? And since I did have, before I'll continue on to another subject, since I did just have that Coptic dictionary open, why not let's just use it? You feel me? So I'm just right now, I'm about to put Egypt. Coptic being the lightweight, the last stage of the Egyptian language. Now look at this. Tell me as I'm wrong. Am I wrong? They is telling the truth in the Coptic dictionary, just like I said. Look. They say Kemet means the black. And this is representative of a determinative, which lets you know the category. You see? All I was trying to show you was T. Ospi Renin Kemi. The something of the language of the black. They say this, dude, and I'm not making it up. I'm showing you. But first, let's be clear. Right here, this is a dark color bruise, or the grapes, dark color like the grapes of Egypt, a bruise. But it's like a Kemi. The land can definitely not bruise. People will get a dark bruise, and the word is, I mean, again, I don't want to mess it up because I ain't been on my Coptic. I will open up a Coptic script so I can get back right. Now look at this. The black. Am I wrong, or am I misinterpreting that? Yes, it say land. I'm pointing out to you why people use parentheses. If it said the black land, he wouldn't have separated land with parentheses. Is this something about, before I go on, is this something about that seemed like that's not understandable? Let me know in the chat. Now, I'm going to click into Kemi, right? And we about to see heckin' stuff. They never, ever, ever make that mistake. Crumb don't make that mistake to mislead people to think it mean the black land. He telling you clearly. Kemi means the black, land in parentheses when they talking about land. But Kemi can refer to a person who's black. So Crumb is not about to mess that up. But I want to find something and see if I can. Now they say, see also all of, this is the one I've been looking for. Now y'all about to tell me, I know I'm not the brightest amongst us. I clearly know that. Some of us just don't come across the data. I pretty much know that if you came across the data and information that I come across, and you was able to perceive it in the ways with the information and knowledge that I already have, you see the same thing. I want you to see something here, and you should be able to see it fairly clearly. Come on, which has a cognate in ancient Egyptian. This is Kim with another M behind it. See? This is Kim with the second M. Want me to show you it? Dang, bro, this be easy. All of these got cognates. I'm going to go KMM. Dog, they out here leaking. To be black, to be dark. Now, y'all got to understand what B means. Oh. B is a state of existence. Ground don't be nothing. Because the action of existing is to be a being, a human being. Have you noticed, if you say be about something that ain't living, you probably tripped off it in your head just and subconsciously. I don't know, not really, because you can say where them cars be at. But you are asking, where could they be located? Where do they exist? To be black is to exist in a state of blackness. To be dark is the same thing. Now notice black, dark, okay? Come on, black, dark. We tell y'all this all the time. Stop acting like it just gotta be blackity black, smack black, jet black. Go back to the Coptic, you see the extra M? We wouldn't have known, we wouldn't have had any clues how to pronounce this Kim Om or Com difference than Kim if we didn't have the Coptic. Now, this is the Coptic pronunciation. Do not confuse the Coptic pronunciation, which will be very close, with the actual ancient Egyptian pronunciation. Nevertheless, we don't form cognates off pronunciation, so to speak. Form it off the tri-consonantal root, KMM. Even though the root is here, it will be Kim, but let's keep going. Here's another KMM for blackness. We could probably go back and see a KM here, right here for black. Okay? Now here's a KAME for black. We got to remember ancient Egyptians don't got the vowels, right? So we just look for a K and an M to find a cognate for that. I mean, this is so simple. But I have to show you, because if you don't see it like I've seen it, you probably won't be able to understand it so easily. There's a K and an M for black. So if we don't know which vowels were surrounding these, we can probably conclude it was something close to the K-A-M-E, and they say Kim, it ain't right. That'll be Kemet. It'll still be close. You feel me? And they act like this E is an E of Egyptological addition. But it actually is what happens when in Coptic we have a consistency. Well, maybe this sound will appear when the T falls off. So we get Kimmy or Kami. They can still give us a Kimmy. But let's look at this. You put a P in front of it, and in Coptic that's giving us a pi, kind of like a the. Okay? So again, he's saying to exist black. Now let me click this one to find his attestations, because whoever he talking about must have existed black. So let's see if that works when we go look. Oh, he don't got no attestations in this one? Ain't no, normally there are. This one just doesn't seem to have one. So, oh, here we go. Nope, this is Egypt. So I must have missed this one. Be black, no attestations. But they'll tell you here, look, please cite as TLA. You see? So people don't even know these tools is connected. They telling you the TLA lemma right here. Now, if I'm correct, I'm about to grab this, but I've never seen too many lemmas with a. Okay, that's why. Because here it go right here, look. Let me open a new page. I could go right here. Entry detail. So let's see about this one. Oh, it's taking me right back to where I'm at. I'm tripping. Anyway, let's keep on along the analysis we doing. Because I can get lost. So why I was here is because I want to get down to these terms at the bottom. But they all on these pages look just black. They ain't telling you nothing about no Egypt. KM, darkness. Kami, darkness. Now we got Kemi right here, the black. Land in parentheses. Now here we got, this is Rome. This is Rome in Kemi, right? So this comes from Remich in Kemi. So now we do know the M is in Remich, even though it wasn't written there, because we got Rome ni Kemi right here. Y'all can see this? This P is a R. So RM in. So RM represents a man. All right? This PM represents a man. Now this is RM really. Now the NK, damn, let me go back. The N is the ancient Egyptian N of conjunction. Still. That's why we need to know Coptic. So we got man of Kemi. Now here it says Egyptian. Let's see if we could get to the source material that I was eventually looking for. Probably would be hard to find because I didn't see it under this source. And this is telling me what's in his other book. They just digitized it. And so I guess I won't be able to show you this right now. Let me see. Spracious language. Population of Egypt. So we got Walter Crumb. I'm trying to think of the other Coptic source. But regardless, I'm not about to sit here and fiddle and fumble and bumble on this all day. But what we do know is that Roman Kemi, right? Rome and Kemi is, Ren and Kemi is giving us the language because it comes for in Kemi. But this is Rome, and they say Egyptian nationality. I want to look at the one that says speech. Well, like I said, when I get to looking for too long, I'll table it. See if we can come back to it. Oh, here we go. Search for more examples. Maybe we have to find more examples. Okay. Yeah, no, I ain't been in this part of the tool as of lately, so I don't want to do all of that right now. Figuring out something. But I definitely got to get into this part. This is going down. Let me see. All right, here we go. I'm glad I looked at this. They broke down the morph. You know, look, it's right here. This is what I was trying to show, the morph. So the first part, which is Rome, this is our word remech. Man of, from, right? So in this term, they say, For we are natives of a city of Egypt called Pimji or whatever. All right. And they also say, now a woman was a Greek, a Sapphoian by race. Interestingly enough, she begged him that he would cast down a demon out of her daughter. So the word here, where's the man word though? I guess they use the feminized for woman. So that Rome, it matches the context of the ancient Egyptian. Mankind, human beings. So here, let's click on this because I said this was Remech, right? So let's see how this is actually Remech. This is a R. I mean, it gives us the R sound. You feel me? Obviously, this is we getting our ooh or our Rome sound from this, and I apologize for getting the name of all the Coptic symbols. From what appears like an M, obviously we getting the M, but it continues because the same phenomenon occurs. Now, first phenomenon is a lot of the TCHs of the Old Kingdom, and I'll pull up Gardner. You can look up Alan Gardner for the capital T. He'll tell you that what was an Old Kingdom TCH by the New Kingdom just turned to a T, which would mean Remech would turn to Remet, and Nacher would turn to Nater. They just start making the ch sound in it after a while. So now we got a T we dealing with at this time period with going into the Coptic, and I probably could show that in some instances. But what it is, it'll look like a TCH, but Gardner says that TCH was now pronounced as a T. So it would have been on the end of this, but we know when you get to the Coptic time period, the T falls off completely. And it will start representing the I sound. Now, if you had a sound similar to a I sound, like an E ain't similar to an I sound, but that possibly would not occur. But that's the only thing I conjectured, is if you had an E at the end, but it clearly seems to be the same thing because we know this is a cognate for the ancient Egyptian word for man, kinsman or friend, you know what I'm saying, Rome. So if we go back to where they were showing that morph I was looking at, you click the second part, it say the black land Egypt, and then some gum that I never seen. And so this is a man of Egypt, a man of the black. If anybody took that to say a black man, they would mess that up completely. That ain't how Coptic would say that. But it would be a man of the black land. All right. I'm just looking at analyzing stuff. Let me see. Because I'm glad they gave us, I'm glad I found this other part. All right, so UNESCO. That's time to turn on the beat machine for UNESCO. I guess I got to do hella reading. But I don't mind, because when cats is this far off, let me see. When cats is this far off, hold on, man, that's way too loud. When cats is this far off, it's ugly. So we about to look at that. Brother Garfield said he'd be willing to debate that Diop lost at the Cairo Symposium. We will come back to Kemet and deal with that some more if y'all got questions later. But first of all, me and Ankh had discussions about that back in the day. We said, you know what? We good. We gonna table that conversation. And for some reason, Garfield thought it was wise, out of all the things that he parroted from the Amara Squad, he thought it was wise to pick up that argument He should have let Bobby leave that down on the floor. Let that go. Because it just told me so much about people. You could have not, you never, ever, ever read anything about the Cairo Symposium. You never, ever. You actually said all of the people at the symposium disagreed with Sheik Anti-Joke. How easy would it be for me to show that that's a lie? You said parroting Big Brother Bobby Banger. You said Diab lost. It lets me know you did not know what the purpose of the symposium was. Cats don't even show y'all sources, right? They give you opinion, right? Not only do I be showing y'all sources, I like to always deal with primaries as much as I can, all right? A lot of the times, I'm going to give you the information that you probably, it ain't really don't be on YouTube. So if you don't really do the work, you can't front like you know something. People who know it will know quick and fast that you don't know anything about it. So you can fool somebody that you know how to rebuild a transmission. See, you can stand there saying it. Oh, I rebuild your tranny. What's up? 1,500. But as soon as it's time to deal with the material, you'll be exposed. Dude gonna be like, what you doing? That ain't my transmission. You don't even know where the tranny at in the car. But while you trying to get the sale, let's get the debate. You standing there selling your ability to prove that D-Op lost at the Cairo Symposium. That's nonsense. You so off there ancient in the back of your head, you thinking if Bobby Banger said it, you could stand on it. Instead, so you would do that with your image of yourself? Well, okay. Let's see what happens when we start getting into the homework. Which one should we start with? Let's start with the type of stuff you don't find on the internet. Okay? A document drawn up at the request of UNESCO before it even happened. Okay? To let us know what it was all about, to see if Diop could have ever lost. All right, and this is drawn up by, remember, Ver Countier, all right? Countter. Vercouter. Ver Countier or whatever, all right? Now, the present state of knowledge. See, you get it different over here. The problem of the population of ancient Egypt is one of the most complex problems of all. It has been and is still clouded and obscured by sentimental or at least irritational attitudes. To solve it, we must go back to the original sources, which have been subjected to so much interpretation, not to say distortion, usually unconscious, that they now need to be brought together and studied afresh. Okay? So that's the first statement made by Professor J. Vercantier, whatever. Indeed, such knowledge as we possess of, or think we possess nowadays on this problem, which is of such great importance to ancient history of Africa, is much less precise and coherent than one might hope. Okay, so this is the problem he's laying out. It is, in fact, full of gaps, which are considerable obstacles to a correct interpretation of the sources at our disposal, and which, in the present state of our knowledge, make a solution to the problem difficult, if not impossible, to achieve. The sources available for studying the population of ancient Egyptians are fourfold. Okay? See, this is how I know who ain't read this. Because who on the show always try to come on with one fold of this? Scientific. If you would have read this document, you would probably stop trying to say who the ancient Egyptians are only using DNA. Because UNESCO is telling us the sources available for studying the population of ancient Egypt are fourfold, not onefold. Scientific, in the strict sense of the term, derived from physical anthropology, from the study of the ancient human remains themselves, which the dry climate of Egypt was preserved for us. So let me stop. This is what he's telling people in 1973 to come with at the Cairo Symposium in 1974. He's telling y'all, if we about to go at it, here go the four folds of the studying the population of ancient Egyptians. Scientific, which y'all try to make that 100% the only thing y'all want to trip off. Secondarily, iconography or iconographic. That is covering all the representations in the form of drawings, paintings, bas-reliefs, and statues by the former inhabitants of the Nile Valley handed down to us by monuments. Linguistics, that is, concerning the language and the writing of a human group, which may provide information on the origins and ethnic nature of that group. They called themselves Kim. Ethnological, involving the comparison between the foregoing sources as a whole. This is what I'll be trying to say. Involving the comparison between the foregoing sources as a whole and the characteristics of the ethnicity or cultural groups known in antiquity. All right? There will be nothing he could do if he popped up today. The data on the screen. No fooling y'all today. There are two requirements for a correct interpretation of the various kinds of sources which I have just listed. First, accurate dating of the human remains or evidence in question. A principle which has not always been observed, since dating is often open to doubt when it is not born out of the carbon-14 test. For example, and secondly, a consensus of opinion among the various investigators as to the meaning of the terms used in the final interpretation. For instance, the word Negro and Negroid seem to take different meanings according to the historians who use them. The word Hamitic, the application of which, I don't even think these dudes can read. I ain't even never heard nobody really read. I think about it. Cats be stumbling, fumbling. I'll be like, how the hell you getting the grasp of all this shit like that? Come on, Garfield. Come on and read this for us. I know you in the bushes. Stay laughing in the bushes. Don't let the blood boil when you're getting killed. You asked for it. For instance, the words Negro and Negroid seem to take on a different meaning according to the historians who use them. The word Hamitic, the application of which to the application of which to an ethnic, Obanga, 1973, page 101, and in number 17, and referenced by Corvian in 1960 on page 71, rather than a linguistic group. It says is universally depreciated, has nevertheless come to designate ethnic groups. So again, about the word Hamitic, when I read the source, it threw it all off. Let me just read it again without the source. The word Hamitic, the application of which to an ethnic rather than a linguistic group is universally depreciated, has nevertheless come to designate ethnic groups. It needs to be defined clearly in the sense if it really fits the facts about the term Hamitic and Negro and Negroid. Furthermore, as it seems obvious that one can never speak of a pure race or ethnic group in Egypt, a correct interpretation of the composition of the population of ancient Egypt calls ipso facto for the knowledge of the people who were Egypt's neighbors at the time. While such information is available in varying degrees for Northwest Asia and Mediterranean Europe, the same is not true for Africa, the Sahara in particular. These facts, oh, hold on, man. Golly, I want y'all to get all of this, but it's 22 pages. So let me just get it. It says, these facts make for certain about the misinterpretation of the possible origins of the various elements of the Egyptian population. The problems which thus arise is, as we shall see, whether human occupation of Egyptian Nile Valley was continuous or not. Okay. Well, we figured that out in the last 50 years. Consider the impressive quantity of human remains, often in a very good state of preservation, which have been discovered in the Egyptian and Nubia, in the Egyptian and Nubian Nile valleys. One may be tempted to believe that there is enough anthropological evidence to form an accurate picture of the origins of Egypt's inhabitants at a particular point in time. In fact, numerous of these remains may be, as numerous as these remains may be, they give us only a very incomplete idea of the original populations of the Nile Valley, being very unevenly distributed both in space and time. Until recent years, before the international campaign to save the monuments of Nubia, launched by UNESCO in 1960, nothing was known of the Nilotic anthropology nothing was known of Nilotic anthropology in Paleolithic times. Anthropology on the Nile in Paleolithic times. And very little of that of Neolithic times. The intensive excavations carried out from 1960 to 1964 have to a great extent closed the gaps in our knowledge, but to start with, the results have not been published and still yet less analyzed. And secondly,
that concern only northern or lower Nubia and teach us nothing about Egypt north of Aswan. From the foregoing, it may be seen that physical anthropology can tell us a lot, although the information is not incomplete. It's often incomplete about the Paleolithic period in northern and lower Nubia alone. The rest of the valley having yielded nothing related to this period. Interesting. That was at that time period. All right. So he laying out the issues, and again, this is a 22-page document, but I'm gonna get to some of the meat and bones of it, because he lays it all out. I'll even like this statement right here. In the pre-dynastic period, 5,000 to 3,300 BC approximately, the Egyptians, and this ain't Diop, this is your man Vortier talking, the Egyptians and Nubian populations as a whole appear to have been mixed. Now see, y'all think he mean mixed like he's saying them populations was integrated. They wasn't separated. And he said consisting of Negroid and dark Mediterranean types. Dark, why did he say dark Mediterranean types? Because y'all always be acting like it was some other people. And a type reminiscent of Cro-Magnon man of the half caste derived from a mixture of these elements. Damn, he went like that. He says the proportion of each element in the population as a whole varied according to the analysis, but they hover in the neighborhood of 30%, 35% Negroids, and 30% Mediterraneans. They don't want you to read this data, huh? Huh? Now, he already told you these Mediterranean was some dark Mediterraneans that you probably wouldn't be distinguishing between the two. But he said, y'all see the screen? So they read the UNESCO, huh? So you read this, Garfield? How did I know to stop right here? You puzzled. Let me see. I'm just taking some bites out of this. The theory that the civilization was brought in by foreigners from the east or the north seeks to explain two facts which are well known from archaeology. First, the spread southward of pottery technologies from the north in the Gerizim and the Nakata II. And secondly, the appearance of writing in Egypt at the same time as the Asians' motifs and objects in Egyptian furnishings at the end of the proto-dynastic periods. They also claim to explain the typical Egyptian historical phenomenon, namely the divisions of the country into two kingdoms, which theoretically were to remain separate until the end of the Greek period. The northern kingdom symbolizing the red crown and the southern kingdom symbolizing the white crown. Did they learn that they were pseudo since then? It says, the union of these two crowns on the head of the pharaoh symbolizes the unification of Egypt in a royal person. It says, when speaking of the north in prehistoric and proto-dynastic time, it is essential to remember that this excludes the delta. Oh my God, so y'all read this? My man, James. What we trying to tell him this yesterday? When speaking of the north, in pre-dynastic and proto-dynastic time, it is essential to remember that this excludes the delta. Man, God, y'all be thinking the wrong stuff. Now they're going to change their whole, just with this one being in the bushes right now, they about to change their whole stance on the delta. Because I got it on the screen and I can pull this up at this page 6. All right. I told y'all the delta wasn't worth nothing. And what did he say?
It is essential to remember that this excludes the Delta since, as we have seen, nothing is known about it from either the archaeological or the ethnological point of view, with the sole exception of the border site of Marinde, and for one period only. The term northern only refers to the Nile Valley region. Got him. Got him. Karate got him. A rich but very restricted area stretching from the Fayum to the outskirts of Cairo, including Heliopolis. It is only from this interpretation of much later texts that the delta from Heliopolis to the Mediterranean is included in the pre-dynastic Northern Kingdom. Now wait till Diop get to cooking. And this is the dude. Now, County Air, if I'm not mistaken, was made as the reporter on everything that went down that we about to read. I got reading to do. I ain't even tripping. I need to show y'all stuff. Let's read this. The stuff that they don't be seeing. Because they read this already before. Am I just skipping through, picking out stuff and speed reading? But then how did I land on this? Despite unquestionable contacts with Palestinian and Mesopotamian Asia, Egypt's civilization remains profoundly distinctive and African from the beginning of the end of prehistory and even throughout historical times. But you read this. Slow it down. He just dissed you. Despite unquestionable contacts with Palestinian and Mesopotamian Asia, Egyptian civilization remains profoundly distinctive and African. From the beginning to the end of the prehistory and even throughout historical times, the different ethnic composition of the population of the North has yet to be proved. Now they're trying to prove it in 2017 with a DNA study in El Malik. Oh my gosh. Don't even play with that boy Smash. Y'all like, this like a video game with some sticks. Y'all need to upgrade the sticks. Y'all need a better Last Master. This is what, before the Cairo Symposium. See, that's how you get them. They don't got all the documents. This is what the reporter, at the request of UNESCO, laid out for things to be addressed at the Cairo Symposium. You feel me? Until 1955, it has been generally accepted that the population of Egypt was Caucasoid. Now, see, let's stop, y'all. Because I told y'all not native Egyptians, modern Egyptians didn't even have prerogative to say that they was attached to the ancient Egyptians until Nasir took over in 1952 and got on the throne not the throne. He became president by 1954. And then he ruled until he was assassinated in 1970. During that span of time, all right, well, let me ask you this. You know the control white people be having on shit, right? Like, if they say it's them, they're going to control it from every angle. They give you 50 billion books and everything. So it says here until 1955, 1 year after Nasir became president, it had been generally accepted that the population of Egypt was Caucasoid. So let's stop right there and address the modern Egyptians who want to address black people in America, act like we doing something. Show me, before 1955, the claims of cultural appropriation towards European people. I was going to say Eurocentrists, caused me to stutter. Show me that. Show me the literature. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying show me it. This is 1 year after white people started to be like, all right, you know what? Might not be us. But now I'll say it more clearly. This is 1 year after Nasser became president of Egypt, and Britain released its hold on Egypt in about 52. So up until 1952, all of the debate was whether it was black people or white people. Arabs wanted no hand in it because they were monolithically Islamic. They didn't want no pagan roots. So much so that that's why the nose of the Sphinx got broke off. Because a Muslim found some natives praying to the Sphinx for good fortune. He got mad, knocked off the nose, started beating the nose with a crowbar, because this was at the time where only the head of the Sphinx was exposed. You could get that out of the Smithsonian magazine. Ask how was the Sphinx. So let me keep on this because I'm just going too much information, y'all. And now this ain't Diop and this ain't the other people writing, and listen to what he say. Until 1955, it has been generally accepted that the populations of Egypt was Caucasian. The expression is Cornevines in 1960 on that page, but I'm going to stop reading the sources. But Sheikh Anta Diop was instrumental. Hold on, man, because they said Diop lost. These dudes is, you got to understand when you're dealing with straight clowns, though. You no need to, I'm not going to mush mouth about your clownership. Why would I do that? You own YouTube talking to the whole entire world. Old people, little boys and girls. And telling them nonsense about deceased African scholars. Now read this. Since Diop lost. This is page 6. I need to go back to the top to show y'all this. Dog. United Nations Educational, Science, and Cultural Organization. That's the first time a lot of us figured out what UNESCO mean. They asked Professor J. Vercountier at the request of them to write a preliminary document about the people in ancient Egypt. We had heard, and now I could go back through this, I'll let you know. You can read it. No scholar is mentioned in this document before Sheikh Anta Diop. Besides the sources, he sourced people. But when he just go and say, he said this and rock the world, he gonna start with Diop. All right? Now, remember, this before the symposium that he supposedly lost. This ain't the results. We got those too. So you can really get it. This ain't no 10-minute round type shit. This you dead completely. Let's get back to page 6. We ain't even started. They just told y'all the North only referred to the Nile Valley region. We got to argue with y'all about that every damn day. These dudes are stupid, and they ain't got no homework. Nothing be on the screen but wiki. Don't nothing be on the screen. When you watch somebody show next, ask yourself what's on the screen. You see these green slides, you're going to know the fix is in. You're never going to win a debate with green slides. You don't even know how the human brain works. You think about money. Green slides. I'm just asking, have you ever seen green slides in your whole life besides watching Garfield present? I'm all in your head. Green slides, you thinking about money. Get up out of here, homie. Let's go. Just don't fuck with Smash, nigga. Now. But Sheik Anti-Joke was instrumental in causing it to be reclassified as Negroid. God damn. You can't make this up. He already beat the brakes off y'all before the symposium, admitted by this professor. Let's read this again. They need a wiki shut up, like you right. Until 1955, it had been generally accepted that the population of Egypt was Caucasoid, but Sheik Anti-Joke was instrumental in causing it to be reclassified as Negroid. That's how they get down, huh? A recent publication gives a faithful and extended summary of Sheik Anti-Joke's thesis, which is forcefully expressed. In fact, the Neolithic and pre-dynastic inhabitants of Egypt and Nubian Valley were Negroes. Negroes were responsible for building the prehistoric and the historic Egyptian civilizations. But Diop lost. And he telling you, up until 1955, everybody said they was white until Diop came. Is they white? Nobody still say that no more. This ain't even the ugliest part, man. When we get to the ugliest part, I should stop reading this because this is just slapping you up. Let's listen how slapped up you're going to get. The arguments put forth to support the Negro theory are more often cultural and linguistic or even literary than based on scientific anthropology, on the accounts given by Herodotus or Diodorus, on linguistics, on the methods of counting. It says, when the evidence of anthropology concerning hair, for example, is called in, it sometimes clashes with the observation of certain archaeologists and anthropologists. All right. The theory that the Egyptian population should be classified as Negro has not, so far to my knowledge, been studied critically in depth by anthropologists. Again, we in 1974. 73. So that's why he gonna be like, let's get it in, let's talk and all this, and let's have this debate. But you see right now that lightweight Diop was even the reason for the symposium. He was the reason, if you see the underlying principle to everything he started with in 1955. Look, man, this dude named Diop, and we bringing him here to talk to him. And they thought they was going to beat the brakes off him. And guess what? There's some black people out here lying to you, telling you that they did. Now that's crazy. There are two theories, both of them categorical. According to the great many, the Egyptian population is white Mediterranean. I wonder who be saying that every day, goddamn, on YouTube. See, they don't say white no more. They take that new one, Mediterranean, but they got y'all in typewriter writing. You beat up in typewriter font. As Van Dier sums up, it may justly be claimed that Egyptian race is of a Hamitic origin. It is certainly that Negroes did not arrive in Egypt until late. According to others, as Obinga puts it, the Egypt of the pharaohs, by virtue of the ethnic character and language of the inhabitants, belonged wholly from its Neolithic infancy to the end of the native dynasties to the human past of the black people of Africa. 1973. So they building it up like, okay, we got to have a symposium. Now look, topics for discussion and lines of research. If you really want to know, they lay out everything you supposed to do, what's going to happen when we get to the symposium. All right, now look, hold on, this is another good one. While acknowledging that the ancient Egyptian population was mixed, a fact confirmed by all anthropological analysis, writers nevertheless speak of an Egyptian race, linking it to the well-defined human type, with white, Hamitic branch, also called Caucasoid or Mediterranean. Man, who used this terminology on YouTube? Europoid, Africide, I don't even know, Africanide, whatever. There is a contradiction there. All the anthropologists agree in stressing the sizable portions of the Negro element. I repeat, all the anthropologists agree in stressing the sizable proportions of the Negro element. Let me repeat that one more time. All, this ain't Diop talking. This is Professor Vercountier at the request of UNESCO. All, he used the absolute, all the anthropologists agree in stressing the sizable proportions of the Negro element, almost a third and sometimes more, in the ethnic mixture of the ancient Egyptian population, but nobody has yet defined what is meant by the term Negroid. Nor has any explanation been preferred as to how this Negroid element, by mingling with the Mediterranean component, often presented in smaller proportions. Let me repeat that. The Mediterranean component, often presented in smaller proportions, could be assimilated into the purely Caucasoid race. Woo! They still be talking about demons Caucasoid. So we read this, huh? And everybody disagreed with Diop. Well, now it's time to turn up. I see we got the street Sufi in the building. Shout out to Gozy. Now it's time for you, Garfield, who ain't came out the bushes, to get this butterfly in your stomach. All right? I'm going to put a butterfly in your stomach right now. Here we go. Let's go. First of all, this is a report on the discussion. Now, this starts with Professor Vercountier presented his paper to the symposium. I just got through reading the paper that he presented to bring y'all up to speed so we can actually know what's going on. He drew attention to a number of points dealt with in greater detail in it. He also made a number of further observations. All right. So just to be clear, I think he's the one, he's neutral. Vercantier, if I'm saying this right, Vercantier, he's neutral. In spirit of recent progress, physical anthropology had so far provided relatively little reliable data except in Nubia. The information available was insufficient to enable provisional conclusions to be drawn with regard to the peopling of ancient Egypt and the successive phases through which it may be passed. Furthermore, this information was not homogeneous as regarded either time or space, and historians often disagree as to how it should be interpreted. The methods themselves were being called into question, but it was now generally agreed that craniometry did not meet the requirements of such research. All right, let's remember that. They concluded that way back in 73. Cats be like, they school type relate. A number of regions had still not been studied in any depth. This applied to the entire delta during the pre-dynastic and proto-dynastic periods and the Upper Egypt prior to the Neolithic times. Little was known of the areas between the Second and the Sixth Cataracts in Neolithic and proto-dynastic times. Similarly, the links existed in ancient times between the Sahara, Darfur, and the Nile Valley had as yet been very little studied. All right. The links existing had been not studied. All right. In that respect, the work that had been done lagged behind what had been achieved in North Africa and in Syria and Palestine zone. Evidence at the present available did not warrant the assertion that the populations of northern Egypt had been different from those in the south. Again, evidence at present available did not warrant that the assertion that the populations of the northern Egypt had been different from those in the south. Similarly, the gap between Paleolithic and Neolithic was probably due to the fact that insufficient research had been done so far in that field. Insufficient and unsatisfactory use has been made of iconography. That's what we say. The studies which have been carried out on the basis mainly on cultural criteria, the iconographic material available, however, has extremely significant characteristics of the 18th dynasty onwards. The two opposing theories in their most extreme form are the people who lived in ancient Egypt were white, even though their pigment was dark. That's what people be meaning when they say they was Caucasoid, yo. Or even black. Did he literally say or even black? So they was white, even though their pigment was dark or even black. Look at how dumb they be wanting people to be. This is the one y'all rocking with, by the way. This is how stupid you is. You didn't read this shit and you sided with somebody that you don't even know what their side is. Now he about to tell you. So now you got to agree that these people beat Diop, who said that the people who lived in ancient Egypt were white, even though their pigment was dark or even black, as early as pre-dynastic period. They said Negroes made their appearance only from the 18th dynasty onward. So you, Brother Garfield, is about to prove that. From the proto-dynastic periods onward, according to some, the populations remained the same. Others believe that foreign penetration into Africa profoundly altered the conditions of the cultural life. Now, Ancient Egypt was peopled from its Neolithic infancy to the end of the native dynasty by black Africans. That's the two opposing views. The view that I am willing to argue is this one. Ancient Egyptian was people, if you're mounting this, these are the extreme views. The one I'm defending is Diop's. Ancient Egypt was people from its Neolithic infancy to the end of the native dynasties by black Africans. These are the extreme views. The one that I'm forced to defend, if we discuss, is that one. The one that you're forced to defend is this one, that they were white. So have at it. And then you got to prove that they were white even though their pigment was dark or even black. If you want to say Diop lost, because that means this prevailed. Now it says, before defining the characteristics of mixed population in Egypt, if mixed it was essentially to reach agreement on the meaning of the term used, for example, Negro, Negroid, Hamite. In the case of ancient Egypt, Professor Varcountier considered it incorrect to speak of either a white population that existed of which had already been ruled out by anthropological research finding, or of a Negro population, which could not be reconciled with Egyptian iconography. So he said the white one already got ruled out because he told us Diop beat the brakes off him in 1955. But he's saying the Negro one cannot be reconciled with Egyptian iconography. Now check it out. Particular attention should be paid to the transition from the Paleolithic period to the Neolithic period in Egypt. New data were available which made this possible. Now see, look, this is the notes, if y'all don't know, this is the notes of what went down at the symposium. So supposedly, by the time I'm finished reading this, Diop gonna have lost. All right. Well then, all right. Well y'all could catch that L too, Street Sufi. If y'all have had videos that Diop lost on Team Osiris, give him to Garfield. And let him use y'all as source material to prove that Diop lost. All I'm going to use are these reports. There's no way in the world you guys can use these reports to say Diop lost. And so, let's go. Each discipline has to, oh, where did I go? I'm sorry. So this is what happened at the symposium. Ms. Blanc introduced her paper, which dealt with the people in the, now watch her. Since everybody disagreed with, wait, well, let's just go. Let's just watch her. Ms. Blanc introduced her paper, which dealt with the people in the Nile Valley south of the 23rd parallel. She stressed that it was important to approach the problem being discussed by the symposium without being influenced by inheritance of the 19th century and the first half of the 20th, or by the racial assumptions associated therewith. She also hoped for a pluridisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach would be adopted, as the ecological zones, which she distinguished, called for the application of different methods and disciplines. Neither archaeology alone, nor oral tradition alone, nor any form of traditional sociological, anthropological, or historical inquiry could be expected in isolation to provide answers to such a complex problem. And she's right. Each discipline had contributed. So what she's doing is already, she think she don't know how prepared Diop name is. You're right. Now you're right, Garfield. They definitely all they discarded with was, let's not use this white-black stuff. Let's not use this. And that is what Bobby Banger was right about that too. But yeah, Garfield, if you're going to ultimately say that that's an L, it's Diop's efforts who even caused this to be a symposium.
So he already won because he said they was black and he made them call a meeting. But this is what she's saying. Each discipline had contributed information which sometimes decisively important, which sometimes of decisive importance and of which the author has cited examples. Mindful of that fact, for reasons which were themselves historical, the historiography of the Valley of the Nile has been based on assumption that was a civilized Egyptian valley providing a wealth of historical evidence, and another valley further south, which was black and primitive. And of interest only to anthropologists, Ms. Blanc hoped that historical research in the valley as a whole would be in future be more balanced. So she even saying, nah, man, I did my work on south of the 23rd parallel, and we need to look at this area more, and I wish it would be more balanced, the research. This would mean abandoning traditional historical methods and broadening the field of inquiry to embrace a new methodology. Ms. Black saw the work which was done going into Nubia for the last 20 years or so as a first step towards re-examination of the questions which faced the symposium. In order to escape from the traditional view of the Nile Valley, which traced its historical development into the north-south direction from the more civilized to the less civilized, Ms. Blanc drew attention to the Nile region situated between the 23rd parallel and the source of the river in Uganda. See? People just so don't be knowing the information. Her analysis took into account the dividing line, which she regarded as being of fundamental ecological importance along the 10th parallel, where the advance of Islam stopped. Between the 23rd and the 10th parallels, the Nile being a navigable waterway, could apparently have played a role comparable to that which it played farther north in Egypt. This did not occur, and the ecological conditions in this reach of the river no doubt provided the principal explanation. It says, Ms. Blanc went on to make the overall examination in the light of this fact of the respective contributions of settling and nomadic populations throughout the area considered. But after tracing the history of the population changes since the coming of the Muslim and Arabs, she concentrated particularly on, But after tracing the history of the population changes since the coming of the Muslim Arabs, sometimes you got to read things slow so people can hear what she's saying. But after tracing the history of the population changes since the coming of the Muslim Arabs, she concentrated particularly on reviewing hypotheses concerning the peopling of this zone prior to their arrival. So since she traced the history of the population changes, she knew it was wise to study the history of the people before the arrival of the Muslim Arabs. The author emphasized, now this is what's going to make y'all mad, and this is why I had to read all of this. Look, the author emphasized, this ain't Diop. This is Miss Blanc. The author emphasized that the Nile Valley facilitated communications with West Africa. And y'all read this. I need a Don DeMarco. And Sub-Saharan Africa. Must I read that again? But after tracing the history of the population changes, she's a scholar, see? She traced the history of the population changes since the coming of the Muslim Arabs. So then she concentrated particularly on reviewing hypotheses, I guess, concerning the peopling of this zone prior to their arrival. Can she dig it? The author emphasizes that the Nile Valley, she emphasized that the Nile Valley facilitated communication with West Africa and sub-Saharan, but she was, I guess she was against Diop, huh? And helped to beat him up. And this how he got the brakes off him. So I guess Diop got the brakes beat off him by another white lady standing up and saying, hold on, Egyptians was in connection with West Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, and that it was reasonable to put forth the hypothesis that the civilization which emerged there might be authentically African, rather than civilizations intermediate between the Mediterranean world and Black Africa. So now we got the white lady standing up. Shout out to her. I don't want to say if she white. Now we got the other lady standing up. Y'all is some clowns, bro. Now you do that to yourself when you lie like you read some shit. And you really just parried Bobby Banger. So you got yourself in some trouble. Not Bobby Banger. See how you did that? You said you want to debate this. Me and Bobby tabled that. You didn't scratch the wound. But it's ugly. Darfur to the west. No, I want to read this again. Sub-Saharan Africa and West Africa is what it said with that, and that it was reasonable to put forth the hypothesis that the civilization which emerged there might be authentically African rather than civilized in another way. Hold on. Darfur to the west, about the social and political organizations of which, prior to the 17th century, little was known, nevertheless, played an important part of the regional center of economic development. To the east, the region of Sennar, inhabited by Funi, was a center of Black Sultan, the Black Sultanate, which was originally neither Arab nor Muslim. Was she disagreeing with Diop or not? The zone between the Nile and the Red Sea occupied by the Beja was barely able to support settled populations on account of the harsh ecological conditions. South of the 10th parallel, the ecological conditions were totally different. In this area, there were isolated populations about which little was known either from archaeological research or from oral traditions. Hypotheses on these people and history in this zone today have little evidence to support them, and it is only more southerly regions in the Lucitrine zone in East African that fairly thorough historical studies have been carried out. Now, finally, Ms. Blanc emphasized that the new methodological approach which she advocated highlighted the importance of geographical and ecological factors. While in the north and Egypt sector of the valley, conditions favored the settlement of populations. In the south, they were conducive to the nomadic, in the south, settlement in the south, they were conducive to the nomadic way of life between the 23rd and the 10th parallels, and the semi-nomadic way of life south of the 10th parallel. So we heard what she had to say. She ain't disagreed with no Diop. And now it's about to go down. Professor Sav Soderberg gave information about the Scandinavian excavations in the Sudan between 1960 and 64. Let's see when somebody start putting hands on Diop, because first we knocked down the first scholar. She lightweight agreed with him, or said at least we need to consider what he's saying. Now the second person hop up and he say, "Oh, I got some Scandinavian excavations in the Sudan from 1964, 60 to 64. These excavations established that there were contacts between the Nile Valley and North Africa and the Sahara. The subjects covered by the publications included 7,000 rock drawings. 7,000 rock drawings. And the analysis of the remains of 1,546 human individuals. Van Nelson had defined the relationship between the A group, C group, New Kingdom group, etc. Comparative studies yielded different results, depending on whether craniometry only was used or anthropological and technological factors as a whole. Now look, let's see. Iconographical and physical anthropology studies lend support to the idea that there have been a migration of Saharan people, and groups coming from the south, and that they also had a considerable contacts with the ancient Egyptians. So hold up. Is the second scholar stepping up to agree with Diop or disagree? Since he got beat up and you gonna prove it and you willing to debate. Here go another debate you ain't gonna show up for. I want the debate. Garfield Reed. Did Diop lose at the symposium? You said it, you want it, you poked your chest out. Let's do it. It's gonna be ugly. For the Mesolithic period, comparisons had to be made to on the basis of fewer than 100 skeletons. Valid conclusions were impossible in the case of Nubia. But more accurate data could be obtained in the Neolithic period. In any event, Professor Save Soderbergh thought that it was impossible to base a study of the people in Egypt in ancient times or any other similar study on racial distinctions, okay? Let's keep that clear. Thank you. In future, other lines of inquiry should be followed. Different cultures, contemporary with the ones with one another but isolated, might nevertheless belong to the same techno-complex. This new method confirmed that Egypt was African. God, man. So now we're on the second scholar. This new method confirmed that Egypt was African. But if one looked beyond this finding, it was apparent that there were many other problems. Nakata 1 and Nakata 2 did not belong in the same techno-complex as Nubia or the contemporary Sudan. Slow down, because Maria Gatto dissed him with that 2012 work. And actually, she showed that it is related to the Sudan. In the Sudan, zones extended from Kassala to Chad, and to Wadi Halaf and to Khartoum was a single large techno-complex unit. What? See? The A group constituted another and more recent techno-complex, being the first and third cataract and possibly beyond. The Nubian excavations were a result of an effort to save the largest possible number of remains before the flood of the upstream from the dam. In Egypt's less extensive work, all right, man, I'm getting readership, so I'm just going to start going through it. Now, look, Save Soderon did not think the outmodel notion of race was appropriate in seeking the characterization of populations of Egypt and preferred rather to concentrate on the relationship of man and its ecological environment, particularly in the north of the valley. He also had a preference for the studies of relationship between civilizations and cultures. So we just went through three scholars. We doing this one by one, American Dream, so y'all can no longer say Diop got beat up. We just went through three scholars, and the first two didn't disagree with him at all. The third is saying here, yo, my only contention is we just shouldn't use racial categories. Like social constructs is what we be saying. So what you know, that social construct jargon is going to come up out of this symposium as an answer to the problem solved. Now here comes your boy Diop at the symposium, first time speaking and stepping up to break them boys off. Professor Sheikh Anta Diop maintained that from the anthropological point of view, research carried out since the discovery of Professor Leakey led to the conclusion that the human race first came into existence in Africa, in the region of the source of the Nile. It says Glauger's law, which was presumably applied just as much to the human race as to other species, stated that warm-blooded animals which evolved in warm, humid climates had a dark eumelanated pigment. The earliest human beings on the earth were therefore ethnically homogeneous and Negroid. The population spread out from the original area, reaching other regions of the earth by only two routes, the Nile Valley and the Sahara. In the Nile Valley, see, he went back and started breaking them down all the way. Exactly, Christopher. It make them look bad. In the Nile Valley, this spread took place from the south in the northerly direction, and a progressive movement between Upper Paleolithic and the Proto-historic period. Now, remember, this is another person giving his breakdown of what happened at the debate. But you got to remember, he was sitting there taking notes. And this is going to be the funniest part that you clowns who say Diab lost is going to hate. Guess what? His position is to be the rapport. Let me show you if I said that correctly. His position here, look. It says, well, if you don't know, maybe it'll say it at the end of the document. He's the reporter, if I'm not mistaken. So he neutral. All right? Imagine what's going to happen at this damn event. It's going to be so funny. It's like you in court, right? You got the plaintiff and the defendant. You got the judge and the jury. But guess who else you got? You got that clerical person who typed everything that's happening in shorthand. That's him. Remember that, what I told you. Remember that analogy. He ain't supposed to chime in or nothing. Watch what happened. And you said Diop got beat up. Now it says, Professor Diop referred to Dr. Massoulard, whatever's book for the critical examination of the information provided by the physical anthropology concerning the people in Egypt in ancient times. In passing, Professor Jope pointed out that the craniometric criteria were quite inadequate for assigning individuals to racial categories. Neither the choice of indicators nor the terminology used was uniform or satisfactory. According to Professor Massoulard, the population of ancient Egypt perhaps comprised at least 3 different racial elements. Negroid. So hold on. For the record, y'all clearly see that nobody, just like Unc said, and like we always say, nobody exclude that Negro element from being there. Y'all tried to make it some melting pot that turned everybody tan. It's not working. Negroid amount and over 1/3 of the total Mediterranean people and people of Cro-Magnon type. Professor Jope inferred from this that the populations of Egypt was basically Negro during the pre-dynastic period, a conclusion contradicting the theory that the Negro element spread in Egypt in later times. Now look, he's going to show you how Diop was breaking it down. Skeletons with fragments of skin attached. Repeat, skeletons with fragments of skin attached, dating from the very ancient times before the practice of mummification was introduced. Before mummification was introduced, had been discovered by Elliot Smith. These fragments containing melanin in sufficient quantities to establish them as Negroid skin. Okay? So this is what opted Diop to want to go get some more samples. Because this man, Elliot Smith, had just found some samples attached to some skeletons. that the Hawass couldn't keep from Diop. Or not even Hawass, he wasn't in the thing yet. But the Antiquities Commission couldn't keep from Diop. Maybe Hawass was in the thing. He was doing that for hella long. Well, let's see. In the quest for positive proof, Professor Jope had studied a number of participants being subjected to labor examinations in Dakar. I'm sorry. A number of preparations being subjected to laboratory. Golly, I'm ready to stop reading. Because I said a number of, anyway, being subject to laboratory examinations in Dakar. These consisted of samples of skin taken from mummies found in marionette excavations. These all revealed, and Professor Jope invited the specialists present to examine the samples. We got video of that. Now, so he at the debate with some damn samples. Came off some bones. He had some other ones, though. He showed up to the debate with shit they ain't got. Excuse my language. All right? He did, though. And invited them to take a look. Now, this is where the pseudo-menudos come in. Because this was stated at the symposium. They all revealed. And Professor Diop invited the specialist present to examine the samples. The presence of a considerable quantity of melanin between the epidermis and the dermis. So he already did the test and said, look, take a look. Melanin, which was not present in white skin, persisted for millions of years, notwithstanding prefix affirmations to the contrary, as could be seen from examining nations of skins of fossil animals. Professor Jope hoped to be given the opportunity of carrying out similar research on skins of the pharaohs whose mummies were in the Cairo Museum collection. All right. So he already stepped up beating the brakes off people because the first three people reading their books, two of them tried to agree with Diop. One of them said, yo, let's just not use racial classifications. He stepped up with bones, and he didn't have bones, but he had specimens for their specialists to look over. He went on to state that a conclusive anthropological study would also include osteological measurements and the study of blood groups. So he crushed them because they laid out 4 parameters that didn't include 2 more that Diop included. He said, hold up, you also got to look at their bone measurements and their blood types. Ain't that osteological? Yeah. It says, it was remarkable. What? Hold on. You clowns. Look at this. This is the dude who I told you who was neutral. Remember when I said, imagine a courtroom where you got a plaintiff and the defendant and the judge and the jury, and the most neutral even more than the bailiff, because the bailiff might have to hop up, put hands on you if you do something. The most neutral is that clerk back there typing everything that go on. So if you start an outburst in the clerk, the clerk has to still type. It's an outburst and detail everything that happens. So this dude who had to do that said it was remarkable. For example, that present-day exemptions, particularly in Upper Egypt, belong to the same blood group B as the populations of West Africa. See, y'all don't want to look at this shit. Y'all just don't want to. See, he was even blown away. That boy said it was remarkable. is how they is talking about. This is the dude typing, sitting there neutral. It was remarkable, for example, the present-day Egyptians, particularly in Upper Egypt, belonged to the same blood group B as the populations of West Africa and not to group A2, which was characterized with the white race, which is a characteristic of the white race. He thought that to be remarkable. After discussing a number of publications which he considered to have misinterpreted the facts, he is Diop here, whether consciously or not, Professor Job concluded this part of his communication by stating that the population of Egypt in the pre-dynastic period was entirely Negro. Okay, thank you. Was entirely Negro, with the sole exception of a small admixture of white nomadic elements. Now you got to remember, Mediterranean meant white back then, because white people had the lock on Mediterranean. They never let the Arabs just started getting some historical stance in the Western world after Britain came up out of Egypt. At least in this discussion. So they said Diop ended, whether by on purpose, by accident, by saying the entire population of the pre-dynastic period was Negro, with the sole exception of a small admixture of white nomadic elements. He went on to consider the matter of using iconography, iconographic data to corroborate anthropological findings. That's what I be telling y'all. Look at the pictures to corroborate the bones and stuff. You find a mummy, look at how the mummy represented himself. According to Petrie, the Negroes who comprised the population of ancient Egypt belonged to the Anu people, whose name, written with 3 strokes, was found in southern Egypt and in Nubia and also in Sinai and Libya. I explained this the other day, that this is just the Bo people of I win to you. The portrait of the I win to you, even though I'm going to correct that for them, because it's all right, they just got the wrong transliteration. The portrait of the Anu chieftain Terranetta from Abydos show. I've been reading for how many hours? I'm starting to get lightheaded. Just read. I mean, you know. Goddamn. Professor Diop provided a list of the names of fortified towns that comprised the An, which the character of Anu. Narmer, in pre-dynastic times, was considered by Professor Job to be more Negroid than the present-day Senegalese. Zoshel, Cheops, Mentuhotep, Simroset, Queen Amos, Nefertari, and Amenhotep I were Negroes. Ramses II wore a headdress of the Tutsi type. The Sphinx, see, this is the dude in the corner just typing everything Diop is barring him with. The Sphinx, as drawn by French expeditions in the 19th century, was Negroid. The Sphinx, as drawn by the French expeditions in the early 19th century, was Negro. On the other hand, whenever Indo-Europeans were depicted in ancient times, they were consistently represented as captives in postures of humiliation. Professor Diop contended that it was unnecessary to dwell on the details which, for example, distinguish Negroes from other personages, the latter being aristocratic in the same tune. The difference of representations from the social origin. This different from representations that was of social origin. This difference of representation was of social origin, The common people were iconographically distinguished from members of the ruling class. He went on to speak on the evidence provided by ancient. So this is Diop just filibustering their ass, but he got good information, so it's not a filibuster. He went on to speak on the evidence provided by ancient written sources, pointing out that the Greek Latin authors described the Egyptians as Negroes, and referred to the testimony of Herodotus, Aristotle, Lucian. Oh yeah, let me take the list of this. Oh, here go the list. Damn, do the work. I was looking for this list. God, I got the list. Herodotus, Aristotle, Lucian, Apollo Diodorus, Achilles, Achilles, Tatus, Strabo, Diodorus Siculus, Diogenes, Laterus, and Ammonius Marcellus. Ooh, I'm gonna beat the brakes off y'all with that video. And Ammonius Marcellus. We need all of those sources on the screen in a quick video. Diop did the whole homework. We be stopping at Aristotle, Herodotus. Nah, this boy said he told them, all them boys. Hold on, I need that list again. At least I remember it's on page 72. All right. So did I go up too many pages? Yeah, I did. Marcellinus, and modern scholars, he said, refused to take into account those texts. By contrast, the 18th century author Volney did speak of the inhabitants of the ancient Egypt as Negroes. Furthermore, now this is in the 18th century. Furthermore, the biblical tradition considered Egypt to belong to the descendants of Ham. Professor Job considered that the science of Egyptology, a product of imperialism, had much to answer for the denying all the facts to which he had just referred. So is he getting the brakes beat off him? This is a neutral party writing this down. Look, Professor Job then turned his attention to the way which Egyptians describe themselves. Now it gets critical, because I'm still on Diop's side of this argument, but I just say that this is not all the way conclusive. Now look, this is when the debate gonna start. They use only one word for this purpose. That's not right. They use more than one word. But for this purpose, to describe themselves. So he's basically saying a category of this term represents a physical characteristic, and they use only one word for this purpose, Kemet, K-M-T, okay? The strongest term existing in the language of the pharaohs to indicate blackness. Anyone disagree with that? If you want to disagree with that, I'll cite two things right here for Diop. Let's go, right on the goddamn screen. I'm going to cite black cattle and black leather and black land, all called Kemet, not Kim. None of them is called Kim. Okay? And the blackness in the pupil of your eye. It's not called Kim. It's called Kemet. All right? So let's go back and see if Diop was wrong. The strongest term existence in the language of the pharaohs to indicate blackness, 100% correct. Which was translated by Professor Job as the Negroes. Now, Wujahu and them got funny with this part. And it was true what they were saying. He was using their own, since they said Nehesi meant Negroes, he just used their own methodology back on them. But he's using it more appropriately. But this Negro thing is antiquated in our time period. But in 1974, it probably wasn't all the way antiquated. It ain't all the way outdated. Consequently, the hieroglyph was not written with the crocodile scales, but with a piece of charcoal was his stance. Professor Diop Professor Job went into the question of compound words based on the root Kim. This one we're going to put this on the screen because I've been reading for 30 billion hours. Shout out to y'all who always contribute to the show and make sure it's cool. And, you know, it's cool. I'm going to keep reading. The Egyptians distinguished themselves from other people by calling themselves Kemetiyu. Okay? But they did not draw a distinction on the basis of color between themselves and Nubians. So one might argue that the Book of Gates was them drawing a distinction between themselves on the basis of colors. Right here, he's talking grammatically and linguistically. Lastly, black was an adjective applied to the principal Egyptian deities. Osiris, Apis, Men, Thoth, Isis, and Set. So let's keep it clear. No, Isis. I'm sorry. And Isis. Let me show y'all. There's a period after Isis. And it says Set, on the other hand, was described as red, as were all other evil beings. Here, I could corroborate that with the TLA. I'll pop the word red in here, see if Diop was wrong or right, if he got beat up. Man, y'all some clowns. That's the respect your name deserves. Clown. If the shoe fit, put that motherfucker on and know I'm laughing. Just share. Now, what did Diop say? Set, on the other hand, was described as red, as were all other evil beings. Some of these absolutes that he's speaking in was just probably a way of the time. But he ain't wrong. Let's go to red. Click it. Oh, no, that's not what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to do. It's going to make you mad, dog. You're going to think, why ain't black dirty? Do you know that black ain't dirty in ancient Egyptian? Guess what's dirty? Red. So look, red, angry, right? Let's keep going. Redden, an expression associated with shipbuilding. I don't know. A tree in its wood, that's just a red tree. Some substance, a part of cereal. Wrath. Wrath is red. He just told you 50 years ago that was described. Set, on the other hand, was described as red, as were all other evil beings. Here we can clearly see red and wrath goes together, but it ain't over. Didn't I tell you black wasn't dirty in Egypt? Red was. Y'all trip off that? You dirty, bro. Just share. The red one, Seth. So he's right. Seth was red, as he just said. Where he getting beat up at? Now he about to wind his part down. In conclusion, Professor Job emphasized with supporting examples the family resemblance between ancient Egyptian and Wolof. Now, this is when somebody about to step up and try to hop in. Professor Shinny, so we had about the fifth person. Diop was fourth. All three who spoke before Diop, two of them agreed. One of them said, let's leave out race. Then Job starts speaking. He just said what we read. Now here go the next dude. Professor Shinny, or Shiny, whatever, before leaving to attend the meeting, had asked Canadian specialists in the physical anthropology for their reactions. So hold on to the theories advanced by Professor Vercounty-Air in his paper. You got to remember, Vercounty-Air put in that paper a year before that I was reading at first. So before Professor Shinny cut, he pop up. He didn't even respond to Diop. Look at this, bruh. He gonna respond, but so Diop wound his up with his conclusion. Professor Shinny takes the floor and be like, hey, before I go, let me ask you a question, Mr. Canadian Specialist in Physical Anthropology. I want to know your reaction to the theories advanced by Professor Vercounty-Air in his paper. Now look, Their opinion was that discussion of these theories in such a rigorous and uncompromising form was a retrograde state which would put the clock back some 30 years and could serve no useful purpose. So he says their opinion was that disgust of these theories. Remember when Vercantier was breaking down the extreme theories, and I said Garfield would be forced to take one side and I would be forced to take the other? This is what he's addressing. And says, in such a rigorous uncompromising form was a retrograde step, which should put the clock back some 30 years and could serve no useful purpose. Professor Shenley greatly regretted the fact that no physical anthropological or anthropology specialist was present at the meeting who was qualified to state what were the latest methods of working and how they could be used by archaeologists and historians, and to explain the view currently held on questions of race by physical anthropologists. Now he's going to start to address Diop stuff. The fact that the classical authors referred to the Egyptians as black could not be invoked as an argument. He trying to dismantle what Diop said. This is the first disagreement he about to try to give Diop, and watch what happens. It's about to be hella fun. So the first refutation is we got Diop said, look, all of these authors said the Egyptians was black. And he's saying the fact that the classical authors referred to the Egyptians as black could not invoke as an argument. You can't invoke that as an argument. Now look, Professor Shenny regarded the concept of blackness as a very subjective matter and quoted the example of British authors describing Egyptians as black in modern times. Such a description of the population of the modern Egypt was no more hold on though. Did he just say that the British authors described Egyptians as black in modern times? Such a description of the population of modern Egypt was no more valid than the description given by Herodotus, he's saying. Now, watch, it ain't even Diop who gonna get back at him. Look, Professor Deboneau. So now we about 8 people into the conversation. And the first debunker, is between Professor Shenny, and he only refuted one thing Diop said, was about using that Greek material. Now look at this. Professor Deboneau, departing from the discussion of Professor Vercantier's paper, reported on some discoveries he had made himself. His work in the field of archaeology and physical anthropology had led him to the following conclusions. In his research on the lower Paleolithic period, which he had been carrying out in the Theban Hills, he had discovered proof of the existence of the most primitive form of man in the Theban Hills. Human remains had not yet been discovered, but the use of the stone implements pebble culture had been authenticated by discoveries in geological strata which could be confidently dated. In the plain of Abbasia, it says, a similar stratum had been discovered earlier and had been classified as Aeolithic. Now let's stop here because it's going too far past. People don't know that he stepped up supporting Diop. See? People don't know that only Professor Shenny tried to mount an argument only about using the Greek sources, but then Professor Deboneau came after like, hold up. I done found some of the oldest man in the Theban Hills. And Diop said the migration out of Africa took place along the Nile Valley and in the Sahara. And so he's coming in agreeing with other data. Because you got to remember how a real conversation go. We just reading it. But you can refer to somebody else said at when you get your time to speak. So he's saying earlier discoveries dated from the pre-Acheulean period. And it says, the Theban Hills contain geological deposits dating from the Acheulean period, but no human remains had yet been discovered there. A skull fragment discovered in 1962 at Jebel Cecilia, North of Combe Ombo, probably dated from the Middle Paleolithic period. It was the most ancient of all human remains so far discovered in Egypt and was at present time being studied. Other human remains dated from the Upper Paleolithic and the Epipaleolithic periods had been found on the same sites in the strata of Sabellian II and in the what is this? The Aurignacian. I need to hear that word. Aurignacian is what it sounds like to me, but I need to hear that word. So, Aurignacian, I haven't heard of that period. Let's see. They gonna go Aurignacio on you. I want to hear them say it though. I know I'm saying that wrong. That's why I'm doing this. What, they're not gonna say it?
Aurignacian culture.
Aurignacian. All right. Let's get back to it. The strata of Egypt. Aurignacian culture strata, or the Aurignacian strata of Egypt. The human remains of the Epipaleolithic. I got 30 minutes to go. The human remains of the, I'm gonna open up if you'll be around, I'll open up the chat. We can keep it popping. The human remains of the Epipaleolithic period had been studied by Professor Aguirre. In his preliminary report, he stated that the man of the Cro-Magnon type was present, possibly related to the Mekta el Arabi race in the North Africa and the Eslar race. It says, but the specimen showed no significant dental mutation. As for the Neolithic and pre-dynastic time, numerous human remains in good state of preservation have been discovered during excavations at El Amari in northern Egypt. Professor Deary's study had provided important information on the racial differences between the North and South during this period. The bones found in El Amari, unlike those discovered in the South, were obviously similarly and supposed to a supposed new race of pyramid builders, which appeared to show Libyo-Asiatic affinities. Now, that was that theory they tried to rock with. Now, let's just deal with all this. It says the Median civilization, the cemetery of which had been discovered, one of the Mede and another in Heliopolis, had proven by direct evidence the existence of a race fairly similar to El Amari. So this guy is coming in, chiming in with the old school. Now this is going to want to be one of the people who are going to get the brakes beat off. Let's remember his name. Since we said Diop got the brakes beat off, he actually came in worse than some of us with that Caucasoid stuff and tried to make that pop. Oh, it's Professor Deary? Okay. Professor Deary. Let's see how this goes. Now he says he's not finished yet. With regard to the iconography, he is finished. Because with regard to the iconography, Professor Debenot thought that such records could serve as useful purpose up to a point. Excuse me. Dang, man. Just had to burp. It says, the Neolithic pre-dynastic site of northern Egypt, Fayum, Merimde, and El Oman, had provided no iconographical representations of human forms such as figurines or vase paintings. On the other hand, and this was indicative of a cultural and a racial difference, a fairly large number of figurines and vase representation have been discovered in Upper Egypt dating from the same periods. Tazian, Badarian, Akkadian 1, Akkadian 2. Like the ones we looked at earlier that had Mesopotamian technology, I would say. I mean, in developments. I don't know how to quote it. These was, it says, this was a field for further study involving comparisons between these findings and Nubian figurines of the C group found in Nubia. Obviously, a large quantity of rock drawings found particularly in Upper Egypt and Nubia and in the deserts would enable interesting comparisons to be made with those found in Africa. Such comparisons would emphasize contact between people and movements of populations. All right. Now here's Professor Dobono again. Debono, consider that from the linguistic point of view, It would be useful to reconstitute the prehistoric Egyptian language. It was certainly that this language had hardly changed at all in regards to the terms designating everyday objects, which continued to be used in much of the same form even during the pharaonic period. For example, flint arrows, bones, and subsequent metal harpoons, personal jewelry, combs, and basket works. Lastly, Professor De Bono turned to the ethnographic study of the objects already discovered and noted a considerable similarity between pebble cultures and in the different regions where they had been discovered: Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Egypt. So De Bono is on De Bono on Diop's side. Showing, look, he keeps showing this going to the blackness. And it says the same was true with the Acheulean period, during which bifacial core tools were similar in a number of regions of Africa. On the other hand, the homogeneity of the Sangoan industry, found in East Africa progressively diminished as one moved further south. At Khor Abu Anga, Saya Island in the Sudan, there was a more or less complete range of tools. From Wadi Halfa onward, the number of elements were apparently lost. In Egypt, only one of the industry's typological characteristics were retained between Thebes and Detroit near Cairo. In the Middle Paleolithic period, the striking of Levallois flakes, with Mediterranean variants, not Mediterranean, variants different greatly as between Egypt and the areas situated further south or west. In the Paleolithic periods, for reasons which remain obscure, but which were probably due to changing climate and ecological conditions, Egypt became isolated from the rest of Africa with regard to stone tool making, and original industries were created. And he cites those industries: Sabellian, Levalloisian, Hararian, and Cargian. Furthermore, at the same period, there were attempts at foreign penetrations by the Algerians from the northwest Africa. Now, I could read this all day. So far, Diop ain't got no strong contentions. I'm going to scroll through it because I've done this and I want to get to the point where the strong contentions get raised. Now, but I'll read this part for Gozi. It says, an equal interesting intrusion of foreign people into Egypt was that of the Natufians of Palestine, whose presence at Helwan near Cairo had long been an established fact. Recent excavations have shown that these people inhabited a larger area. Stone implements attributed to these Natufians have been found in the Fayum in the eastern Derib along the belt extending to the eastern-western direction and the Nile. Now, we often ask Gozi to bring a source on that, and so the guy who is kind of trying to rival Diop is bringing out some of the same type of info, but Gozi, you can simply source the Symposium of the People and the People of Egypt, and on page 75, right there, about they can read up on the Natufians. But again, what we have established is that the Natufians is what I believe before that allele split that would make them be some light-skinned people. So this is why this person maintained the contention that they were dark Mediterraneans. The Natufians of the Levant were the only people that have practiced dental mutilation typical with East Africa and used the men of Mektel Arabi and by Negroids of Khartoum. It says traces of the surviving Natufian techniques have been discovered at Helwan amongst the typical El Amarian material. All right, so yeah, exactly, James. But he wasn't wrong in saying Natufians. We just had to point that allele that would have made the people of the Levant look that much different had not expressed itself yet. Exactly, and so it says Professor LeConte. Now we're going to the next professor. So we're going to see whether his viewpoint is contradictory to Diop's, or is he trying to agree? Is he trying to debate the man who's trying to debate Diop, or is he trying to agree? This is Professor Leclant, or whatever. He stressed the African character of Egyptian civilization. Let's stop. After dude came in talking about the damn Natufians and stuff, Professor Leclant hopped up and said, hold on, man. He stressed, let me make it bigger so y'all can make sure that I'm doing this right. It says, Professor Leclant stressed the African character of Egyptian civilization, but it was necessary to distinguish clearly, as Professor Vercantier had done, that's the one who wrote the paper a year earlier, between race and culture. So that's his focus. Physical anthropology in Egypt was in its infancy. Nevertheless, there was no justification for relying on the total outmounted studies of Chantry, Elliott Smith, Sargent, and Deary. He just beat up Deary now. Now, remember when I said Professor Deary, who spoke up earlier? He didn't speak up. It was actually somebody relying on that source material. And this dude is coming back in. Leclant, he kind of on Diop's side. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Because he says, physical anthropology in Egypt was in its infancy. Nevertheless, there was no justification for relying on totally outmoded studies of Chantry. Now, Elliott Smith, I don't remember Chantry, but I remember Elliott Smith and Deary from earlier, where the other person, I think it was scholar number 3 or 5, citing these people to talk about how they wasn't black. So this dude went back and gave him a bar. He said, ain't no need to be relying on them outmodeled studies. Then he hit him with a furthermore. Furthermore, there had already been important reinstatements of current knowledge, such as that by Werskirski, or whoever. I can't say that name. Hold on. It's 12 o'clock. Hold on. All right, so it says, groups working in Nubia have also shown considerable interest in physical anthropology, with the result that Nubian reputed poor in archaeological remains paradox seemingly like to become far better known than Egypt in this respect. I got to read that over. I butchered it. It says, with the respect to Nubia reputedly poor in archaeological remains, paradoxically seemed likely to become far better known than Egypt in this respect. That was just worded weird. Archaeological expeditions now gave, what did they give, y'all? They gave great prominence to the osteological studies and innovations, which was greatly welcome. In cultural science, rock engravings, which showed the enormous degree of uniformity from the Red Sea to the Atlantic, were worthy of careful study. These traces have been left to the successive cultural groups, hunters and herdsmen and others. The peopling of Egypt was a considerable problem, and it would be very premature at this stage to adopt a synoptic approach as a means of solving it. The problem should be approached through separate, precise studies. For this purpose, the collaboration of specialists and disciplines not represented at the symposium was indispensable. See, Diop the only one who's gonna beat him up that like he's gonna be like, hold on, I can carbon date stuff. But all of the producers were general historians qualified to compile the synthesized data supplied by specialists. Such data were, for the moment, very inadequate. In any case, it was retrograde to have recourse to authorities who were today completely outdated, such as Lepsis and Petrie. He says they might be recognized as having historical importance, but Egyptology had made great progress since their day. Now he about to start going in on the Kemet. He gonna try to beat up Diop about the stuff. As for the iconographical evidence, the only problem was to know how the Egyptians considered themselves in relation to other men. They called themselves Remich. He said rain. That is to say men. Other people they regard as an amorphous mass extended in all directions, told y'all, designated by cardinal points. For example, the statue of prisoners at Saqqara were particularly Northerners, Asiatics, and Libyans, and partially Southerners, Nubians, Negroes. Stereotypes for Northerners, whites, or Southerners, and Southerners, Negroes, under the sandal of the Pharaoh confirmed that representation. Now, somebody about to step up because dude going a little bit far. Exactly. This is 50 years ago. And they the ones who think Diop got beat up. You don't have to tell me how old this shit is. I'm the one reading it to you. You never read this shit, SOC 12. Stop fronting. I know all of you new motherfuckers who trying to look smart in chat rooms who never ever click the link. Y'all don't know how I get down. No need to tell me how old this is. I'm correcting other people who don't know this data. Now it says, Professor Gabal spoke on the successive elements which could be identified in the people in the Africa between the Paleolithic period and the third millennia of our area. In Northeast Africa, the large quantity of stone objects dated from the second Pluvial period had been found in the Nile Valley and the Oasis. Professor Galab distinguished at least 6 ethnic groups in the Egyptian population during the Mesolithic period, which, however, were united by homogeneous culture. And after 50 years, you ain't read that though, Sot. Stop fronting, I could tell. And after 50, I could tell when you know what you're talking about and when you're just trying to put up something. After 50 years, the evidence is in Diop's favor. Now white people is completely out. He beat them out the whole argument. Now it's Arabs trying to assume a position that they wasn't assuming at this conference. No Arabs showed up and said, not Arabs, but no native Egyptians showed up and said, we're not black, we're not white, we're just Egyptians at this conference. That did not happen. I'm the man for Blackology, SOC 12, you know that. It says he considered that the human race during the Paleolithic period was more or less homogeneous Caucasian. The first Negro types in Africa were Anslar men. Who considered this? Professor Gabala? Oh, he gonna get the brakes beat off him. So this is another dude trying to disagree with Diop and said that it was all white. Then he said the Negro culture did not really appear prior to the Neolithic period. Oh, he gonna get the brakes beat off him. It ain't gonna even take Diop to beat the brakes off dude for saying that. That's Professor Gabala. Professor Abdel Gadir Muhammad referred to a number of points arriving from Professor Vern Contier's paper and Diop's statements. He did not think they're important to establish whether the ancient Egyptians were black or Negroid. What was most remarkable was the degree of civilization they had achieved. Physical anthropology had, so he don't even want to address it. Physical anthropology had provided important evidence concerning the presence of black. This is another scholar coming after dude who said the Negroes wasn't there. So they is arguing. He like, man, physical anthropology had proved that black men in the ancient were in the ancient population, but it was going too far to generalize and to say that this population was entirely black or Negro. Why should it not be accepted that they were also Caucasians and whites? An Africanist approach to these problems should be avoided. There was no escaping the fact that the Egyptians detested the Nubians. Now this is him coming in with that. Iconography evidence made it clear that the creator of the Napata culture had nothing in common with the Egyptians. Their anatomical, dang, bro, I'm out here ancient. Characteristics were completely different. I got read fatigue. If the Egyptians were black, what color were the men of the Napata culture? See, now he start asking the stupid questions that y'all be trying to ask. Watch how Diop and them beat them up. Now he gonna try to go in on that Kim term. Turning the subject of linguistics, Dr. Abdullah stated that Kim did not mean black, and its derivatives did not refer to the color of individuals. He gave a linguistic demonstration in turn to illustrate his theory, then deferred to Professor Diop. So he tried to do the Ujahu. He concluded that the Egyptian language was not purely African. It had been a Proto-Semitic group. It could be abundantly demonstrated by supporting examples. Man, it's 1 o'clock. I got 10 minutes to go and do something. And so I'm gonna finish going through this, but hold up. Let me see. If y'all want to hit the Zoom, then hit the Zoom link. We could keep it popping. If not, it's gonna be over. So let me see. Because if you hit the Zoom, I can just log in from my phone. But I gotta go pick up my seed. And y'all can continue reading it. Let me see. But all you really gotta read is the conclusion. You don't need to do all this reading I'm doing. You can simply just read the conclusion. You feel me? Hold on. Why are they showing me all this on my phone? Because I monetize this video. All right, so hold up. Hit the link and hold down the show. Here you go. I just put the Zoom up right now. That's going to help me be able to log in from my phone. And we can keep it popping. Feel free to hit the link, no matter what you agree, disagree. You know how this show goes. But last time I tried to do this and hopped in the car, and then all the audio had cut off from the link. Now I'm looking at my streamer, and I just don't know how that could have happened. We got Street Sufi coming in, brother Ngozi. What's up with Gozi?
Yo.
What up with it?
Hey, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just here to say this. I don't know what Garfield argument is, but like I told you on that show, Smash, a lot of things that Garfield is using, he received it from me through 93 or Fortune. So I don't know how he's arguing whatever he's arguing. Timo Cyrus did a debate, not a debate, but a video on what was critiqued from Dr. Anti-Jope. And we're not saying he lost the way people are trying to say he lost. But what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is that the audience needs to hear everything you read, which is 50 years ago. It has been a lot of things that has been discovered. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is that everything you read hints to what I'm trying to say. The surrounding populations that makes up the population that's there now.
Yeah, and that's why I said I gave you that source they was talking about the Natufians.
Yeah. And I was just also trying to say, and people don't really understand my argument. The black and white thing is not Ngozi's stance. Yeah. Like the skin color of the people doesn't really matter to me. Morphologically, you can see the intermediate shifts between skin tones, but the surrounding populations between people that did back migrate, the indigenous populations that was there who drifted backwards and forth, that's a continuity. There's a continuity amongst them, and if you get them from that time to now, people mingling, mixing, bottlenecks, reproducing, you're gonna go through parallel shifts.
I don't disagree with that. You know, I represent. I speak to those who be excluding that black, that indigenous, to act like they wasn't part of the mixture. Basically, but James, I'm putting you on real quick. I gotta get in my car.
I know you gotta get in your car, but
y'all keep building, and James got the host. I'll be right back.
Okay, that was one of the elements. Nobody can deny that element, but there's other surrounding elements. And the only thing I hear my brother James keep saying is Neanderthal. Bro, the first Eurasians that back migrated into the continent, 23,000 years ago, were dark skinned. Being mixed with Neanderthal does not mean that you're going to be fair skinned. He keeps arguing about Neanderthal. But what I would say is that you do see a shift where populations of migrants coming from the Lesser Caucasus hitting the Levant first around 6,500 years ago, and hitting the delta of Egypt or the north near Fayum around 5,300 years ago. A later a population of Eurasians who did have the light skin variant, who did penetrate the north, who did intermingle with the population that was already there prior before, that was heavily Natufian-like, who range from brown and darker brown skin tones. Morphologically, they would not, and I mean this, they would not have been an taxon of populations that's Congoid. But that's not the question. I mean, that's not a thing, because the people that we represent have its own adjustments, adaptations, its own human leukoantigens or whatever that's distinct to our region of Africa. So I never said that the Egyptians are not African. They still are Africans. I never questioned that. My whole thing is that when people try to say that these people that's there now are invaders, and when you look into the DNA and you look at the PCAs, they have a continuity that's been there consistently for a very long time.
Hold on. See, this is what I'm kind of see, because I don't understand because you can say what you want to say. I mean, anybody can say what they want to say. But the problem is when someone else knows what you're saying.
That's fine.
Okay, now watch this. So if these people were always there at this genetic clip that you're saying, so you're telling me that in North Africa, they've always been there. They're indigenous to Africa. Hold on. You're saying at a 70% European genetic clip.
You first of all, you have to. Hold on, no. You keep, hold on, bro. You got to. No, listen. I don't want to create a steer argument because I got to go pick up my daughter.
Okay, now listen. It's time to break.
No. I'm gonna come back on here when I get my car, but I have to get my daughter. But listen, what I'm trying to say is this. Listen to what I'm trying to say. The nomenclature or the labelings that they use when it comes to that you have, like I said before, that's kind of faulty because it distinctly says 70% European Middle Eastern in the sense of Neolithic European, right? But you have to be very cautious of that term that's being used.
I gotta be cautious.
What I'm talking about the audience when they listen to these terms, because that term, like the Coptic component or the Maghrebi component is a component of piece of DNA that's indigenous to early ancient Middle Eastern populations and indigenous North Africans. And they call it the Coptic component. Some people call it the Ethio-Somali component, or they'll call it the Maghrebi component. So you have to be very cautious. And that component is a continuity of something that's ancient that occurred a very long time ago. The segments that they used when they said 70% Middle Eastern, which is in European Neolithic, I think it says 70% Middle Eastern, 2.3.
They didn't say
but they're not talking in the sense of modern populations, and just not that.
Yeah, they were talking about the modern population.
No, this is what I'm trying to tell you. When they say middle, they're talking about Neolithic Europeans. I'm trying to tell you what's being said, and that segment of DNA is only based off a component. So if they say 70%, it's not the overall literal 70%. The component was very small. A component means piece. So they're saying within a component, it's a 70% consistency that's shared with populations of Europeans or ancient Europeans.
Control.
I'm bro. Listen.
I'm gonna don't worry about it, man.
Hold on, listen, James. I'm trying to tell James. Listen, I'm trying to tell you how PCAs work. The sample size, the samples. Don't when you hear those numbers, those outrage. Just like when he talked about the analysis that was used with Samaka Keita, he said the sample size, which was only 8 STRs, is not enough to tell the overall DNA composition. So when you hear a distant range of 80%, 70%, in truth, it may only be 12% or 13% because the samples are so small. It doesn't represent the overall DNA composition. So I'm just saying, just be mindful of PCAs that's used in describing certain things when it comes to genetic components, bro. That's all.
Why don't you minimalize it on the other end like that?
I'm minimalizing on all ends because, like I said,
you don't. You maximize the certain genetics, and then you minimalize it when the data doesn't say what you wanted to say.
No.
You will tell us that we have to be careful.
No.
But when the data says, when you're in opposition of data that doesn't say what you want to say, then you will say that we have to be careful with that.
I'm gonna let you.
Why? You're saying this ain't even stable for us to use. Every time we get ready to say something that you don't want to say, I'm just saying. But see, what you do is go. I mean, like, what's going on?
I get it. But out of blackology, you're gonna function and react like that. I don't really care.
This ain't got nothing to do with blackology. It got something to do with data. See, that's what
okay. Well, you got to know.
Brother